Hello, this is Mr. Sexton, and welcome to day 3 of the Winter 2019 PS 103 class. I hope everything's going well. Again, since I haven't heard from anybody, I'm assuming that Moodle's working okay. I'm assuming that you were able to access the videos and that the quiz went all right. Today, we're going to have a little bit of a different approach because Chapter 2, which deals with the Constitution, is probably one of the lengthiest and most detailed laden chapters that we'll do this semester. So, with that in mind, we're going to do my brief daily video today, kind of highlighting some of the things you need to be watching for in the chapter. But also, you'll notice by looking on the Moodle page that there are two videos, about 20 minutes if you combine them, and they talk about a concept known as the Madisonian model. So, after you get done listening to and watching this video, and then you've read the chapter, make sure you watch that video because there will be specific questions on the exam from that video. So if you've got any questions about anything that's going on, as usual, go ahead and give me a call or send me an email. Chapter 2 in the textbook deals with the Constitution. Okay? And when we look at the Constitution, we have to understand that the Constitution, yes, was written in 1787, ratified 1789, but there's a lot of history before that that we need to be aware of. And in this class, we're just going to touch briefly on that. So when reading Chapter 2, make sure you read the portion that deals with prior to our declaring our independence, some conversation about the Declaration of Independence, why we declared our independence. And then make sure you read very closely the section that talks about our first Constitution, the Articles of Confederation. Lots of people don't realize that the U.S. Constitution was not, in fact, our first document controlling our governmental structure and the way our country should operate. Make sure you understand the Articles of Confederation. And one really important thing you need to pull out of there, make sure you understand why the Articles of Confederation failed. Okay? After you get done reading that section and understand why the Articles of Confederation failed, then we're going to take a look in detail at the Constitution. And then, of course, when we look at the Constitution, when you're reading the chapter, make sure you pick up on the different plans generated before we actually wrote it. When they went in to write the Constitution, there were, as everybody probably knows, there were two groups of people. People who supported large states and people who supported small states. Make sure you understand the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. Okay? Now, also, as you're reading the chapter, make sure you pull out the information on how the writers of the Constitution were able to balance those two plans. Because obviously, the large state plan didn't win out, nor did the small state plan. There was an obvious compromise that had to be created. Okay, and when we look at that compromise, after you're done understanding how they compromised on those two plans, then you're going to get into the meat of the Constitution itself. And there are some major concepts that you need to pull out of the reading. Obviously, you need to understand the different articles that we have in the Constitution. The first article deals with the legislature, the second deals with, and Article 2 deals with the presidency. Article 3 deals with the judiciary. And be familiar with what the 7 articles of the U.S. Constitution in general deal with. Okay? In addition to understanding those 7 articles and what each of them deal with, make sure also that you are aware of some of the major concepts that we find addressed in the Constitution. For example, the U.S. Constitution creates a brand new form of government known as federalism. Federalism was designed to deal with the problems of the Articles of Confederation. And under federalism, you need to understand how it addresses the issue of who's going to be most powerful, the national government or the states. So be familiar with that general concept of federalism. In addition, the Constitution has some very, very important clauses or statements within it. Some of those include the Supremacy Clause, the Commerce Clause, Full Faith and Credit Clause. Those are just some of them. Make sure you're aware of those major clauses that are addressed in the Constitution. Now, in addition to that, make sure you understand that concept that you've been hearing about since elementary school, the basic idea of checks and balances. Make sure you understand how the Constitution is established with three branches of government, and you have the executive branch can't do anything without some kind of an approval of the legislative branch, and then the judicial branch has some checks and some balances over the other branches. Make sure you understand the general concept of checks and balances. Now, after you've done all of the work of understanding all of these nuances of the Constitution, make sure you understand and pull out of the chapter the fact that there were really two groups of people who leave the Constitutional Convention after the document's written. You've got the Federalists who supported the Constitution, and then the Anti-Federalists who opposed it. What you need to understand is, why did the Anti-Federalists oppose it? Understand the specific examples given in the textbook and the reasons why the Anti-Federalists thought the Constitution was not the document we needed. And then, of course, be familiar with the Federalists and the way that they defended the Constitution. And specifically, we're talking about the Federalist Papers here. Be familiar with what the Federalist Papers are and what they attempted to accomplish. And then have an understanding of the way that the country finally ratifies the Constitution. Understand what it means to ratify and understand how it was accomplished. Now, the final thing that you need to take away from the chapter is make sure you understand the process as it's explained in the chapter of how the U.S. Constitution can be amended. Make sure you understand the difference between the proposal step and the ratification step. Make sure you understand the basic ways that an amendment can be proposed and the basic ways that an amendment can be ratified. And then, of course, make sure you're familiar with, in general, the 27 different amendments that we find in the Constitution today, and in general, what each of those 27 amendments deal with. Okay? When you're done reading the chapter, make sure you don't forget to go back and watch those videos dealing with the Madisonian model. I don't believe your textbook uses that phrase Madisonian model, but James Madison was one of the people who wrote the Constitution, and when he went to the convention, he had an idea in mind on what this new document should look like, what it needed to do to be successful. And in watching that video, it really lays out in a little bit more detail exactly how the government was created and why it was created the way it was. Okay? Well, I hope you guys are having no problems at all with the class this semester. And again, just want to remind you, if you have any questions or need anything, make sure you give me a call or send me an email. Good luck.